Well, it looks like some of y'all really don't understand history. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the safer outcome of World War II, in my opinion. Now, for you guys, you might think that the atom bombs took out a chunk of Japan, actually two, and turned it into unlivable holes. Well, you'd be wrong, because there's a municipal website for both Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Now, we're going to get into why those two events, the Fat Man and the Little Boy bombings, were the safer outcomes of World War II, as it only took out 150,000 people. And the information I'm about to give you is going to 30 times that at most. So let's get into it. Okay, let's kick things off in Germany, September 1938, a year before they invade Poland. If you don't know about that, go see my video right up here. I go in depth on that. So, anywho, Germany, they have a couple scientists and they crack the code to nuclear fission, which now we know it creates power plants and it creates bombs. They don't know that yet. They create a nuclear program to investigate that. Then their ally Japan does the exact same thing. So you have two Axis powers investigating the biggest mystery, magic rocks. So then they both know the power. Roughly, they know how much power it's going to have, and they know how expensive it's going to be, which is why they both shut down the nuclear program. And now, by this point, Soviet Union and Germany just pull into submission, and that kicks off the sequel to the War to End All Wars. All right, so we are now in 1942. By this point, the greatest country in the world. Yes, we are the greatest country in the world. We are currently kicking Japan Midway and dual raids. So then we create our own little nuclear project because we heard Germany did, and we don't want to be behind. So we make our little nuclear project and we call it the Manhattan Project. Now, if you don't know what the Manhattan Project is, get out of that hole you're living in and listen. It was our version of nuclear program where we just investigated, can we build this? It was headed by J. Robert Oppenheimer. If you're still struggling, go watch Oppenheimer. Great movie. All right, so another quick little time jump, and we're in June 6, 1944, where General Dwight D. Eisenhower brings upon the largest naval operation known to man. I think until Operation Praying Mantis, 1980s. Anywho, Dwight D. Eisenhower sends the Allies right at Normandy Beach. After a couple of losses, we take the beach, then we liberate France, and now we are gunning it for Germany. And once Battle of Bulge happens, there's nothing stopping us. So Hitler knows this, and he gets scared. On April 30th, 1945, with that fear, Hitler Frenches a cyanide and dances with his peepee, and then puts it to his head. Now, first of all, not that peepee, you degenerates. I'm talking about the Walther peepee, predecessor to the Walther PPK. James Bond's gun of choice. Anywho, Hitler's peepee was black, for some reason, small, and did not pack a big load. And somehow, size didn't matter. It got the job done. Anywho, after that happens, the only good thing Hitler ever did, war in Europe is over. But we still have this to worry about. Pacific is still at war. And with the Japanese doing the kamikaze, we are trying to find a way to get out of it without mainland invasion. On July 16th, 1945, J. Robert Oppenheimer and the rest of Los Alamos watched this Trinity test prove successful. Now, Trinity test was the test to see if the nukes would work and if they would light up the atmosphere, which clearly they didn't. So, after that proved successful and we won Okinawa, everyone knew the war was over. We were just wondering how it was going to end. And the main idea was a fucking mainland invasion, but we knew that would kill a lot of people. So we tried to find a better way to save lives on both sides. So we proposed the nukes. Nukes proved successful, so we decided to use them. Now, before we even used the nukes, we asked Japan to surrender. This is how I imagine it went. Japan, we have something you don't. You want to stop? We can not drop them on you and we'll let you live. I only surrender if you let me keep my military. Japan. That is a white piece. That will start another world war, and I don't want a trilogy. I assure you, we will not start another world war. Yeah, that does not help me at all. And after 4 years of Japan being in the around stage, they finally entered the find out stage. On August 6, 1945, a tiny little thing blocked the sun over Hiroshima. And then it created a new one, killing 66,000 people. We asked Japan again, hey, bud, you want to surrender? No. So on August 9th, 1945, a fat thing blocked the sun as well, and then turned into Tatooine with a binary sunset. And that killed, let's see, 25,000 people. After Nagasaki, Emperor Hirohito convened his war council, where they proposed surrender. On August 30th, 1945, 24 days after the first bomb was dropped, General Douglas MacArthur arrives in Japan to investigate war crimes and to make sure there's a smooth occupation over Japan. So let's take a look at something here. Yeah, 3 days after this, they finally surrender, and that brings an end to World War II. Now, for some of you, this might be a little too violent. 150,000, I think, is the maximum people that died in the atom bombings. And more people died in the fire bombs than the atom bombs. So, since you guys think that's a little too violent, let's take a look at what could have happened. Alright, since some of y'all thought that the original way it happened was a little too violent, let's take a look at what would have happened. I had ChatGPT come up with what would happen if Trinity failed. I did not specify how, I just said what would happen. So it gave me two scenarios. The first one is the original way that we were going to invade Japan. This is called Operation Downfall. Operation Downfall consists of two different things, Operation Olympic and Operation Coronet. So let's take a look at this. First off, Trinity fails July 16th, 1945. So that means that we have no atom bombs for a swift end to World War II, and Japan is still not open to negotiations. The Allies are forced to go with Operation Downfall, and this is the largest amphibious invasion ever planned. This is going to shadow D-Day. It's going to make it look like a model war. The first phase of this invasion is Operation Olympic, taking place around November of 1945, with 500,000 Allied troops going into Kyushu, which is the southern part of Japan. Japan predicts this because it's a vital spot, and they begin defending with, let's take a look at the numbers here, 10,000 kamikaze aircrafts, an extended network of bunkers and tunnels, and civilian militias, which were known to be around because a man by the name of Guy Gabaldon, I believe is his name, aka the Pied Piper of Saipan, talked about how people were jumping from cliffs rather than be with the Americans because Americans were cannibals in the eyes of Japan. So, anywho, those civilians are armed with rifles, spears, and explosives. Yeah, that's gonna help out a lot. The initial landings were expected to take 1 to 3 weeks. Funny, but this would likely drag out a lot longer. The next phase, if this proved to be successful, was Operation Olympic. Next phase of Operation Olympic is the expansion and seizure of airfields. This would be a large scale version of Okinawa, which had a lot of death, so this can be a large scale version of death. The priority of this mission was to capture airfields and support a bombing campaign of Honshu. Sorry if you guys don't like that Japanese accent, I just do it. This is estimated to take around 1-2 months, but again, it can drag out for a lot longer. Now, the final phase of Operation Olympic was a cleanup for the next phase of Operation Downfall. So, the cleanup phase was not meant to fully secure Kyushu, but it was meant to secure it enough, they said, so that we could get planes going for Operation Coronet. Now, the cleanup Takes around 3 months to accomplish. Again, it can drag out for a while, and it would be the end of Operation Olympic. By the end of this, there will be around 200 to 395,000 casualties for the American side. Japan would lose 750,000 to 1.2 million. This includes civilians and soldiers, and civilians are all ages. If you could walk, you were probably trying to kill an American at that time. But after the success, sorry guys, after the success of Operation Olympic, the Allies would continue with the next phase, Operation Coronet. The first aspect of this phase was a Tokyo landing. Starting in March or April 1946, if it wasn't dragged out longer from the previous phase, and it would consist of massive artillery duels and fighting in the streets, similar to Afghanistan. Allied forces would suffer around 160 to 240,000 casualties, while the Japanese would suffer anywhere from 500,000 to almost a million, which perfectly split between military and civilians for Japanese. Now, in May or June that year, the siege of Tokyo begins, resulting in a collapse of civil order, total urban destruction, and starvation. Sounds like communism. But this would carry high casualties, with the Allies losing only around 80,000 to 120,000 men, and the Japanese losing 700,000 to 1.2 million civilians and soldiers. After the siege, Tokyo would collapse from July to August 1946, and it would kill almost no allies, while the Japanese lose another 300,000 to 500,000 civilians from starvation disease, and they lose 100,000 to 200,000 soldiers. The deaths in this invasion would consist of 500,000 to 750,000 allies, more than double the death tolls from our timeline, and Japan losing 2.5 million to 3.5 million. And that's soldiers and civilians, which would double their deaths in the real time. That's 30 times the death of the atom bombs, which is insane. And now we get into scenario 2. This still includes Operation Olympic, but this time the US uses firebombing and blockades a lot more. In our timeline, they use firebombing. They bombed the hell out of Tokyo. This is why they chose Hiroshima and Nagasaki. They weren't touched by our bombs yet, so we wanted to show our destructive power. And then the blockades. We blockade them, but clearly not enough. So let's take a look at this. After they use smaller landings on Kyushu, so not one big one, we go on different beaches around Kyushu. We get there a lot quicker. We split the Japanese and finish operation quickly. And then around January or February 1946, food shortages from U.S. blockades reach catastrophic levels, and the Soviets try to get closer to Japan. Right now, they're just trying to skip away a little bit, get onto Japan, and have a communist occupation. Which again, we don't want that. Sometime in February or March, Emperor Hirohito intervenes to prevent communist occupation. Clearly, Hirohito didn't even want them. And a Japanese divide. He did not want that either. March or April of 1946, Japan surrenders. Before Operation Coronet, the Soviets are excluded from the main islands, which they still have to keep the islands they hopped around on. And of course, the US begins their occupation. But with this, the Cold War still happens. It's a lot quicker tensions in Asia now. And by the end of scenario 2, the Allies would lose 200,000 to 300,000. And the Japanese would lose 1.2 million to 1.7 million. Still 10 times both atom bombs. Which, Jesus Christ. This is why we use the atom bombs. There's a statistic that every Purple Heart given out to soldiers to present day is from preparation of this mainland invasion. And the number shows that because we were estimating hundreds of thousands to be hurt, if not more. That is insane. Because a lot of people don't know, the Japanese are ready to fight to the death for it, even kids. It is the same thing that happened with Afghanistan. Except the Japanese weren't running to a neutral country, being little and then coming back with another hundreds of thousands of little Okay, I'm sorry for that rant. Let's continue on. Okay, so now after I went over that, both scenarios proved that casualties and the war would be horrible. The war would drag out for months to a year at minimum, and casualties would go tenfold for Japan and hundreds of thousands for us. Now, that also means there is a vague future, in option two at least, for future conflicts like Vietnam and Korea now that Asian countries have spiked up in communism when it comes to tensions at least. And that confirms my theory that the atom bombs were the better option of World War II because there could have been a lot worse. That's all for Aggressive History Part 2. Thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you on the next one. If you guys want to go see more of me, go to beacons.ai/fatmatt, FATTMATT, because Fat Matt was already taken with one T. As always, if you want to see more of me, like and subscribe. It's free and it's the best way to support me right now. I'm going to be recording a lot today, gaming and maybe more aggressive history. I will see you on the next one.